Alright, we are recording. So, first things first, NGC6530. I think I'm just going to keep using that image for all these space station based videos. But as you can see, I have shifted it over to that side so that I can have the cover of this book. The reason why is because the topic for this book, I actually kind of already explained in the first chapter of this, so I figured I'll just read from it. And the topic is quarter stations or quarantine stations, as will be explained here. Because, well, I find it a cliche and very annoying cliche in science fiction that, hey, we're exploring outer space. That means we'll find diseases that kill us all. I hate that. It's so silly. But, yeah, so I'm going to try to skip around a little bit with this. But, the setup is the main character, Roman, is actually in a class of, I think I say it's first graders. They're young, regardless, very young. And he's just like a not parent teacher day, but like, bring your dad to work day. He's not one of the fathers. He's just a friend of the teacher and has come in and because he's got an interesting career, being a courier and all that. So yeah, I'll just read through this. Here. So there's some confused faces because he's just explained how his route works, and that it is very isolated, so that you can control if there are outbreaks. But yeah, there's some confused faces, which surprises me. And before it occurs to me the cause of the confusion, I ask the next questions. The next question: do you know what quarter stations are? Just at the corner of the eye, I can see the teacher is rather stressed by this topic. But before she can intervene or I can try to stop the conversation, a student confirms their ignorance. I am not one to not answer questions. Okay, well, quarter stations is a nickname for quarantine stations. These are special space stations kept under continuous quarantine. That means a lot of contact is limited with them, so you do not see many passenger craft stopping there. But it is not because people there are sick. It is just because explorers frequent them. Turning to the teacher, I point to the board and ask, may I? Yeah, I'm going to skip ahead some because that's not super important. And it's basically just him. Okay, here. Start here. We don't even know he's writing on the board. Actually, I'm glad I'm getting to do this, as will give her a chance, the teacher, to learn as well. She is just young and naive enough to believe some of the horror stories that have floated around concerning quarter station. One I once heard described a bacterium that so voraciously attacked fat cells and reproduced that it would burst the skin of those it infected, while another altered the blood just enough that it would literally burn a body's organs. Actually, I think that was the same bacterium in both stories, not that it matters. Well, it actually does matter, because that's kind of my point with this cliche. It's like that it's just being made up and exaggerated and people getting really afraid, even though it's like, wouldn't have one disease doing both those things. Anyway, on the board I draw two circles and then two dots pointing to, okay, I can actually skip a lot of this, because this is going more so into the routes by actually drawing them out. While this multi-step process may seem slower, it is significantly safer, just, about the whole planet to space station to planet for a route. I'm never exposed to something from one planet, nor is anyone else at this station, and no one there is exposed to anything from Earth. The cargo can also be properly isolated and sterilized at each step. Now, for something like that, taking cargo from Earth to an established colony, forming such a chain is pretty easy, but there are many times that is not possible. The colony might be too young, there might not be a space station yet, and it could be the system is still being explored. Explorers visiting strange new worlds are undoubtedly going to be exposed to chemicals, bacteria, pollen, and more that we have never encountered before. So what happens when they need supplies or repairs to their ship? Where can they go without exposing others like you and me? That is the purpose of quarter stations. He put some additional points on the board then. Quarantine stations are continuously under quarantine protocols, so explorers and early colonists are freer to access the resources of a space station. Some degree of isolation is still necessary, but they are still free to dock and enter the station. Something unfortunate about quarter stations is the stories that surround them. I've heard some truly horrifying ones, and a long time ago, I probably repeated a few, but they are almost always fiction. Oh, there have definitely been explorers that come down with some disease humanity has never encountered before, but it's nothing like the movies show, where it turns out to be some super disease. I met a retired doctor once that spent almost her entire career on a quarter station, and she pointed this out to me. Those diseases haven't been exposed to us either. Most of the time, the disease has no impact. It just exists in the person or triggers the body's basic response of a fever until it is eradicated. Then there's just a student asking, can't tell us one of the stories. No, as I said, that they are almost always fiction and only scare a lot of people without reason. That fears consequences, though, as it makes it harder for those who live and work on quarter stations to live. The gullible start thinking the stories are true, so they ostracize them. Sorry, that's one of those fancy words. That's a payoff from earlier. The people become excluded by others, even from conversations. There's some people that will not even talk to you. They will actually stop and walk away if you have ever been on a quarter station. You know what bullying is, right? It is the kind of bullying these people suffer, and I will not contribute to it with falsehoods. So no, I'm not going to share any of those stories I heard. And I'm not going to share any true stories from quarter stations either, because they are so boring. He came in for water and food, spent the night, woke up with a fever. Fever was gone in a couple days, as were all signs of infection, so he left. Like I said, they're boring. That's the explanation to quarter stations. But yeah, I mean, it is. I put it in there because, as I said, I hate that cliche. But it is reasonable that if you are exploring the galaxy, you are going to be exposed to chemicals, bacteria, pollen, all that kind of stuff that you could potentially affect the body as well. But end of the day, chances are it's not going to do anything. I mean, think about it. We have animals living with us as pets. We also have other domesticated animals that we're constantly near. But it's not that common for their diseases to leap to us or our diseases to leap to them. It does happen, but it's not very common. It's like we're constantly being exposed to them and by them. By them? You know what I mean. We have that constant exposure in both directions, and especially with a pet, you're in physical contact as well, like, a dog licking your face, or you petting a cat. I mean, it's like you are constantly exposed there, and yet we don't typically see any disease leaping from one species to another. It can happen, yes. It's just not very common. And the thing is, a dog has a lot in common with us. I mean, it's like we're both mammals. We both have certain characteristics to how our bodies function. There are recognizable organs in both. And also, basically, every species on Earth has DNA. It's like, so there's a lot of things that are common between us, and yet it's still difficult for the dog flu to become human flu, or the human flu to become dog flu, or swine flu to become human flu, or bird flu, and there's various bird flus as well. It's like that's not very common. So why would we believe that life that originates on another planet that might not even have DNA, the basic building blocks aren't even the same? Why would we think that that's going to be able to invade us successfully? That's key there. That is key there. Successfully. Because that's something that, like with the recent pandemic, was talked about. It's the idea of viral load. That you can have it in you. You can be exposed to something, but it might still be at such a low level that nothing ever happens. So it could be, we find something that could be bad, but it is in such low levels that it means nothing. Or just that it's there, and then our body's like, that's weird, get rid of it. And that's what happens. As I said, the basic response of a fever. That's exactly what that is. Diseases don't cause a fever. Your body causes a fever to eradicate the disease. And it's like so it's very natural for that to happen. And that might be all it takes to get rid of a lot of things. Just because it's like, as the retired doctor said in this, as I said for the retired doctor in this, so my brain just blanked on that. I'm just going to check it again. What was it? That they haven't been exposed to us either, I think it is. Want to see if I can get that quote. Those diseases haven't been exposed to us either. So it might be that, if it got in, it would be very, very bad. But it's like, white blood cells are like, ooh, lunch. I mean, it's like, it's really a cliche that I hate. But it is worth acknowledging. In fact, later on, not sure which chapter, later on in the book, he does relate a story where there was a planet that did in fact have a disease that did spread throughout the population, and it actually killed a lot of people. But I should actually see if I can find that. Let me. I need to search for it though. I think here we go. The reason that story is in there is actually to explain certain regulations that I'm pretty sure I actually mentioned earlier in the book, which is just the different control levels, influence levels that a space station has around it. And this is why there is a ban that technically this is part of a space station's territory, but they can't regulate commerce in there, at least not specifically for them. So if there is something that they ban certain materials, in this case it was certain foods, that in that area, like within their legal domain, they can ban that stuff. But if you can park stuff outside of that that's still within their territory, no, only international or interstellar law applies there. They can search it, but even if they find something that's only contraband at the station, they can't do anything about it. It has to be contraband more generally. But yeah, in that story, though, it was basically people got knocked on their backs. They had to rest, and they also needed to eat. If they continued to eat, they would be fine. Like, it was just they were so exhausted, so hungry, that's what would kill them. But if they were properly fed, basically properly taken care of, then they'd be perfectly fine. And I'm just trying to see. Okay, so the other result of that event was the colony losing 90% of its inhabitants, and to the infection, most everyone survives. In fact, most everyone does survive it, has escaped the planet, and now is on the list of childhood ailments not far from chickenpox. You get more days off of school for that more ancient disease. So that's, again, me poking fun at this cliche, because, like, even when it's like, yeah, here's an example where it actually did kill people, but if you just know how to take care of the people, it's meaningless. That it's chickenpox impacts you more, and that is so minor of a disease, relatively speaking. Yeah. And I actually have a little bit more. It comes up later in the story. I'm just searching one of my PDFs. So, and I may do another video for this. I'm not sure because it's a pretty well. We'll see. The idea of a Lagrange station. These are, if you know what Lagrange points are. If you don't, I'll potentially do another video talking about these. But these are basically massive, massive space stations that are in very special orbits around whatever planet. In the book's case, it's referring to that around Earth. And I'm just trying to actually get to. Oh. Just realized I typed in language instead of Lagrange. But there's actually two around Earth. One ahead and one behind. And one thing that I share in here. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to spot. Oh, okay, here it is. Was that in the first one built was the one behind Earth. So this, hang on, there we go. This one. Okay, there we go. So this one, let's say, is behind Earth. This one was built first, and it was intended to, okay, that's fine. And then the one in front of Earth, so they're moving this way. So Earth so it's this Lagrange station, Earth, then this in the orbit cycle. This, hang on. Yes, this one, the one after, was built first, and it was just built as a normal space station. They then had to build the one in front. Because people were like, oh, well, one needs to be a quarter station. And it was originally planned for the one in front. But then it was like, no, you can't do that. Because what if something gets out and it could then get to Earth? It's like, you expect a pathogen to escape a space station, get into stellar space, survive stellar space, be in an orbit that it can intersect with Earth. It then survive coming through the atmosphere of Earth, which, by the way, the atmosphere of Earth at various altitudes is wild. Because I mean, there are spots where it's really, really cool and other spots where it's really, really hot. You expect it to survive all of that, get down, then successfully multiply to infect people? Well, apparently some people are that afraid. So they actually had to build the station in front of the Earth to be a normal station, and then the one behind converted into a quarter station. Which, I'm true, it's basically just paperwork, which is which, but it's like, why? Just one of those, when you stop and you think about it a little bit more, when you analyze it a little bit more, it's like, there's actually very little reason to fear. It's like with nuclear power, that there's, once you know a little bit more about it, it's like, this stuff's awesome. I mean, yeah, you need to have safeguards, but it's awesome. We should use more of it. Anyway. But yeah, so maybe next week I'll try to do the video on Lagrange stations, because they are actually really neat, because of their huge size, and what purpose they serve. And also the funny thing is they actually relate to another idea of mine that I don't know if I will write that story or not. But it still was, I put it in here as just, a little reference, a little tribute in a way to that other idea. So yeah. In any case, I shall see you next time. That was Quarter Stations, and I don't know, buy the book because I talk about it in there, and lots more. I also do think it's a good book. Hopefully I'm not wrong on that. Goodbye.